In this video, I'm going to show you just how quickly AI hallucinates and confidently lies to you. The exact sequence of question, answer, and use as source of truth has caused a great deal of disaster at a bigger scale. A consulting firm refunded part of a $300,000 government contract over it. A lawyer was suspended standing in front of a state Supreme Court. One sentence, delivered exactly like the one that you just watched, wiped 100 billion off of a company's stock value in a single day. Same confident tone, same total lack of hesitation. And if you're being honest, you probably didn't even catch it, not just from watching. By the end of this video, you'll know why AI does this, you'll know what it looks like in the moment, because you're about to watch it happen a little closer this time. And you'll leave with an actual method, specific things to check every time before you trust a name, a number, or a citation that it hands you. Here's what nobody clearly explains, so let me explain it to you the way that I wish somebody explained it to me. An AI language model isn't a database. It doesn't have the ability to verify its own answers and evaluate the validity of truth of its answers. So what is it doing then? AI, at every single word, it's predicting what the most plausible next word would be, based on patterns it absorbed from enormous amount of text during training. Basically, the world's greatest autocomplete. Word by word, it's essentially asking itself, given everything I've seen here, what comes next here? And stringing together those predictions together is what produces the sentences that you read, your official answer. Most of the time, what sounds right and what is right are the exact same thing, because the AI model has seen the same pattern thousands of times. The most logical guess happens to be the absolute truth. The problem shows up at the specific edge cases, when it needs a specific citation, a specific name, a specific number that doesn't cleanly exist anywhere in where it learned. A database at that point will return an error. The information you're looking for wasn't found. An AI language model doesn't have that option built in the same way. Its entire job is to keep predicting the next plausible word, so it does exactly that. It generates the most plausible sounding version of an answer it can construct. A real looking case name built from real legal sounding language. A real looking study title built from the actual vocabulary of that field. Specific, confident, but in reality it's completely invented its own truth. Think of it less like a search engine and more like a person doing their best to answer a question off the top of their head, in a room with no books and no internet. They'll get the vast majority of it right because they really have read almost everything, but hand them a gap in their knowledge, and instead of stopping, they'll construct something that sounds exactly like everything else they just told you. Same tone, same confidence, same fluency, and you won't be able to hear it in the difference in their voice. That's a hallucination. And the reason it's dangerous isn't that it happens, is that it looks and sounds identical in the moment to when the model is completely right. Earlier, I discussed some real situations where AI hallucinated and actually affected real people. These cases are important to understand inside their actual context because it could have easily been you watching this right now, taking everything that AI hands you as a source of truth. One of the situations involves Deloitte Australia, where they were paid about 290,000 US to produce a 237-page assurance review for the Australian government. The assignment involved the targeted compliance framework, part of a welfare compliance system used to automate penalties. The report was published, but it included citations to academic research that did not exist, and even a quotation falsely attributed to a federal court judgment. The problem did not first come to light through Deloitte's own public quality assurance process, but it was spotted by Chris Rudge, a University of Sydney researcher. One of the supposed sources were attributed to a book to a constitutional law professor, Lisa Burton Crawford, a book that apparently did not exist and was implausibly outside of her area of expertise. That discovery prompted closer scrutiny of the report. Deloitte later confirmed that some footnotes and references were incorrect. Then they issued a corrected version. Deloitte disclosed that Azure OpenAI had been used in preparing the report and agreed to repay the final installment of the contract. This is an important lesson. The failure was not simply that AI generated false information. Language models can produce plausible but invented material. The deeper failure was that the fabricated sources made it into a paid government deliverable without someone checking whether the cited work and the legal quotation actually existed. AI can accelerate drafting and research assistance, but for high-stakes work, every citation, quotation number, and legal claim needs traceable source verification by a qualified reviewer. Plausible is not the same as true. The expensive mistake was not using AI. It was treating AI-generated citations as evidence without verifying the evidence. The Nebraska case is a different but more direct version of the same verification failure. In a 2026 divorce appeal, Nebraska attorney W. Gregory Lake filed a brief that the Nebraska Supreme Court found was filled with defective legal authorities. The court documented that the document contained non-existent cases, real cases paired with fabricated quotations, accurate-looking citations used for holdings that the case did not support, and even invented language attributed to Nebraska statutes and court rules. The brief cited Kennedy v. Kennedy as a published Nebraska appellate case and used it reportedly to support an argument about parenting time. The Supreme Court found that the cited published case did not exist. There was a real unpublished case with that name, but it did not contain the quoted language or support the proposition the brief claimed. This is what an AI-style hallucination looks like in a professional document. It is cleanly formatted, legally plausible, and confidently wrong. A case name looks real, the reporter citation looks real, the quotation sounds like legal writing, but the source either does not exist, says something different, or was never quoted at all. The court described the brief as containing potentially AI-generated material, while Lake denied that the AI was used to prepare the brief that was filed. But the court's central point was bigger than the dispute over whether AI was involved or not. The lawyer had a duty to verify every factual and legal assertion submitted to the court. The consequences were serious. The court struck the brief, dismissed the appeal, referred Lake to disciplinary counsel, and later temporarily suspended him from practicing law. The model did not need to know whether it was drafting a government report or a court brief. It produced plausible authority in both cases. The professional using it was the one that was supposed to know the difference and verify it. The last but most notable of all the AI mistakes I mentioned earlier was done by a company we all know and trust. In February 2023, Google announced Bard, its experimental conversational AI service powered by Lambda. The company said that Bard would initially be tested by trusted users before its broader release, and it even emphasized that its answers would be evaluated for quality, safety, and grounding in real-world information. But the promotional material for the announcement included a Bard response to the question, "What new discoveries from the James Webb Telescope can I tell my 9-year-old about?" One of Bard's answers claimed that JWST took the very first pictures of a planet outside of our own solar system. That was wrong. NASA's record is clear. The first exoplanet directly imaged was 2M1207b, captured in 2004 using the European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope in Chile. The James Webb Telescope has produced important direct images of exoplanets, but did not produce the very first one. The important part is how ordinary the mistake looked. It was one short, clean, confident sentence in Google's own promotional material. No obvious nonsense, no broken grammar, just a simple checkable fact stated incorrectly. The market reaction made the moment much bigger. On February 8th of 2023, Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, saw a stock price close about 7.7% lower in that one day alone. That one-day decline reduced Alphabet's market value by roughly $100 billion. Although investors were reacting not only to Bard's factual error, but also to worries that Google was losing the ground in the AI race. The context is what makes the Bard incident useful. It was not a legal filing or a paid government report. It was a promotional example from one of the best resourced AI companies in the world. An example released alongside Google's promise to test for factual grounding, and a basic claim about space history still made it through. This is what confident false truth looks like at scale. It does not need to be long, complicated, or malicious. Sometimes it's just one sentence that sounds completely reasonable until someone checks the source. The point is not that Google made a single mistake. Every organization does. The point is that generative AI can make factual errors look polished enough to survive the moment, when people are motivated to make it look perfect. 3 completely different settings, Deloitte's fabrications, consulting law hallucinations, a corporate product launch, and the exact same hallucination in every single one. Confident and completely wrong. And in every case, it was caught by someone outside of the process, where the internal team should have been the first ones to catch it. Recent research tracking model behavior found something counterintuitive. AI models are way more confident when they're wrong than when they're actually right. There's actually a human parallel to this that can help you understand this better. Psychologists have studied eyewitnesses for decades and found similarities between how certain a witness sounds on the stand has almost no relationship to how accurate their memory actually is. Some of the most confidently delivered testimonies recorded in legal history have turned out to be flat wrong. AI is doing a version of this, The same thing, except every time on every topic, and it never once lets you know it's not sure or doesn't have the information, the way an honest witness occasionally would. Separate benchmark testing found that when a user's question implies a false belief, basically when you ask a leading question based on something untrue, models will agree with that false premise. Picture the office employee who learned that agreeing with the boss is safer than correcting them. Ask that employee, don't you think Q3 numbers were strong when they actually weren't? A lot of them would nod along rather than risk going against authority. That's what's happening here. Ask AI, isn't it true that the Great Wall of China is visible from space with the naked eye? A popular myth, and there's a real chance that it agrees with you instead of correcting you, especially if the question is phrased just like you already believe it. The model isn't fact-checking your assumption. In a lot of cases, it's just being agreeable. So if confidence isn't the signal, what is? This is how you actually avoid being lied to. One real data point first. When researchers have multiple different AI models check each other's answers, rather than checking themselves, they caught real substantive errors in somewhere between 1 in 3 and 1 in 2 confidently stated answers. That's the proof that cross-checking works. Now here's what it looks like as something you can actually do. First, anytime AI hands you something specific, a name, a date, a statistic, a citation, a quote, treat it as unverified by default. This one mental shift does most of the work by itself because it stops you from copy-pasting straight into something that matters. And it leaves the data you received unverified until you verify it before using it. Second, check it somewhere that isn't the same model. A second AI model from a different company works. A primary source works even better. If it's a study, find the study. If it's a court case, search the actual case name. If it's a statistic, find where that number originally came from. The Nebraska attorney's mistake wasn't just using AI. It was never opening a single one of those 53 citations to see if the case was real. Third, you need to watch your own questions, not just the AI's answers. The risk goes up specifically when your question already implies the answer that you expect. If you catch yourself asking, isn't it true that, or don't you think, that's the exact moment to slow down because that's when the model most likely just will agree with you instead of checking you. Fourth, match your efforts to the stakes. A caption for a social post doesn't need the same scrutiny as a client email, and neither of those needs what a legal filing or a business decision needs. The attorney who got sanctioned twice used one AI to check another AI's work and called it verify. That's not verification. Real verification means stepping outside the tool entirely at least once for anything with real consequences. That's generally the whole practical answer, not don't use AI. I use it constantly for scripting, for research, for a huge amount of this channel. It's this 4-step habit applied consistently that helps to remove errors. Because the confident and correct are two completely different things. And right now, nothing about how these models sound can tell you which one you're actually getting. One question, one completely confident, completely false answer, and I told you it probably would have gotten past you too. It's the same thing that cost a firm their contract, cost a lawyer his standing in front of a state Supreme Court, and once briefly cost $1 trillion company $100 billion in an afternoon. Different stakes, same root cause every time. AI sounded sure of itself, and sounding sure of itself got mistaken for being right. So the next time that one of these tools hands you a name, a number, or a source with total confidence, you know exactly what that confidence is and isn't telling you. Check it, not because the tool is bad, because right now checking is the entire difference between using AI well and becoming the next story in a video like this one. If you want to see the tools that I actually trust day to day and exactly where that trust has been earned, then comment your thoughts below. As always, subscribe for more. I'm Spencer, this is Tech Motive Supreme, and I'll see you next week.